the subscribe button if you don't want me to come at night.
In the dusty attic of my newly inherited family mansion, I stumbled upon a collection of old family portraits. There they were, hung on the cobweb-laden walls, a silent testament to generations long past. Each portrait, cloaked in a shroud of time, bore a haunting quality that sent shivers down my spine. The air became thick, as if laden with the weight of the untold stories these portraits held. These were not your typical family heirlooms, oh no. They held an eerie charm, a sense of antiquity that spoke volumes of the bloodline I was now a part of. The faces, frozen in time, seemed to possess an uncanny, lifelike quality. A fleeting shadow here, a slight smirk there. They seemed to subtly change when not directly observed. It was as if they were whispering secrets, secrets that were meant only for me. As I peered closer, I could swear the eyes in the portraits followed my every move. Night fell and I was alone in the mansion, the portraits now hung in the hallway. The stillness of the night was eerily unsettling. The mansion, once filled with life and laughter, now echoed with a silence so profound that it felt as though it was swallowing me whole. The darkness seemed to creep from every corner, seeping into the hallway where the family portraits hung. In the dim light, the portraits looked different. There was something about them that felt off. It was as if they were no longer just images on canvas, but mirrors reflecting the souls of my ancestors. The once warm smiles and vibrant eyes now seemed to hold a deep, haunting secret. I walked down the hallway, my heart pounding in my chest as I took in each portrait. The first was of my great-great-grandmother, a woman known for her laughter and vivacious spirit. But now, her eyes were filled with sorrow, her face etched with lines of worry and fear. Next came the portrait of my great-uncle, a man of strength and courage, but his image had morphed into one of vulnerability. His strong shoulders slumped, his eyes reflecting a haunting despair. I moved on to my great-aunt's portrait. She was always full of life, her eyes twinkling with mischief, but now her eyes were wide with fear, her smile replaced with a grimace of terror. The change was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Each portrait, each face showed a glimpse of a fate too terrifying to comprehend. It was as if the portraits were alive, revealing the distress and danger that had befallen my ancestors. My heart pounded louder in my chest as a chilling realization washed over me. The portraits weren't just showing the past, they were showing the malevolent force that had tormented my family. As I turned away, the once smiling face of my great-grandfather now bore an expression of pure terror. Dawn broke, and with it I resolved to uncover the truth behind these unnerving portraits. The morning light revealed a world untouched by the eerie happenings of the previous night, yet the air still buzzed with a mysterious energy. I decided to plunge into the depths of the family's history, hoping to unearth some explanation for the bizarre phenomena. As I delved into the family's past, I stumbled upon tales that were as old as the house itself. Stories passed down through generations, whispers of a malevolent force that had cast a dark shadow over the family for centuries. This force, it appeared, had an insatiable appetite for misery, feeding off the family's despair and growing stronger with each passing decade. The details of these stories varied, but the core was always the same. A force, an entity, call it what you will, that seemed to be inextricably linked to the family. And this force did not merely lurk in the shadows. It manifested itself in the family portraits that lined the halls of the house. The portraits, each one a meticulously crafted work of art, were more than just representations of the family members. They were conduits, channels through which this malevolent force could reach out and touch the living, offering glimpses into the fates of the people depicted. The young woman with the radiant smile, her future marred by heartbreak and loss. The stern patriarch, his eyes filled with determination, doomed to witness his empire crumble. The innocent child, his laughter silenced far too soon. Each portrait told a story, a tale of a life touched by tragedy, a destiny shaped by a force beyond mortal comprehension. As I pieced together the fragments of history, the portraits seemed to come alive, their eyes following me around the room, their expressions shifting ever so subtly. They were not just passive observers, they were participants in this twisted game, silently screaming their warnings and pleading for release. Each portrait, it seems, holds a glimpse into the tragic fate of its subject. And with this chilling realization, my investigation took a turn, leading me further into the heart of darkness. As the days turned into nights, the haunting grew more intense. The family portraits, once silent observers of our lives, became the main actors of a macabre play. They were no longer mere oil on canvas, but windows into the darkest corners of our family's past. Each night, the portraits would transform. The grandeur and nobility they once exuded were replaced with scenes of terror and despair. The family members in the portraits, my ancestors, were shown not in their moments of triumph, but in their final dreadful moments. Their faces, once full of life and joy, were now twisted and contorted in fear. It was as if the portraits were alive, each one a chilling vignette of our family's history. I saw my great-grandfather, once a proud man, now cowering in fear. His eyes, wide with terror, stared blankly into the abyss, as if he was seeing something beyond comprehension. Then there was my great-grandmother. Her once gentle, loving gaze was now a mask of pure terror. Her mouth was agape, emitting a silent scream that echoed through the halls of our home. Night after night, the portraits would reveal more of these horrifying scenes. The dread would build, the tension would mount, and just when I thought I couldn't bear to look at them any longer, the sun would rise, and the portraits would return to their normal state. The house, once filled with laughter and joy, was now shrouded in an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty. The portraits, once a source of pride, were now a constant reminder of the malevolent force that had taken hold of our home. This was not a haunting that I could ignore. It was not a passing phase or a figment of my imagination. It was real, it was happening, and it was escalating. The once noble faces of my ancestors were now grotesque masks of horror. On the final night, the portraits revealed the malevolent force that had brought ruin to my family. A sinister shadow, darker than the deepest abyss, began to materialize in each frame. It was not human, nor animal. It was a formless entity, an embodiment of pure evil that had been puppeteering the fate of my lineage for generations. Each portrait became a window into a macabre theater, where the shadows danced and twirled, creating a grotesque performance of my family's misfortune. The eyes in the portraits, once lively and vibrant, were now hollow, echoing the despair that had consumed their lives. This malignant force, this dark puppeteer, was not just an observer. It was an active participant, a director, orchestrating the tragic symphony that was my family's history. It was the puppet master, pulling the strings of fate, weaving the tapestry of our doom. As I stared into the abyss of the portraits, the entity seemed to acknowledge my presence. Its formless shadow began to take shape, its darkness coalescing into a pair of chilling, lifeless eyes. It was as if it had been waiting for me, anticipating this very moment. The entity's gaze was cold, devoid of any semblance of humanity. It was a gaze that had witnessed centuries of suffering, a gaze that held the power to freeze one's soul. As our eyes locked, I felt an icy chill creep down my spine, a sensation that was both terrifying and oddly familiar. In that moment, I realized the horrifying truth. The entity was not just a dark force that had invaded my family's portraits. It was a part of us, a part of our legacy. It was the embodiment of the curse that had plagued my family for generations. A sudden wave of understanding washed over me, filling me with a dread deeper than any I'd ever known. I was no longer just an observer. I was a participant. I was now a part of this tragic narrative, a player in this macabre play. As I locked eyes with the entity, I felt a chill run down my spine. I was now part of the family's cursed legacy. The entity's gaze bore into me, searing its mark deep within my soul, binding me to my family's fate. No matter where I went, no matter what I did, I would forever be haunted by the malevolent force that resided within the family portraits. I left the mansion the next day, leaving the portraits and their haunting images behind. The faces of the family members, once vibrant and full of life, were now etched with the stark reality of their grim fates. I could still feel their eyes following me, their tormented visages a stark reminder of the malevolent entity that had once ruled over them. I packed my belongings, each item a reminder of the chilling experiences I had encountered. The air was thick with an unseen presence, a reminder of the family's dark past that lingered like a phantom. I could still feel the icy tendrils of the entity's influence, its oppressive power still imprinted on the mansion's walls. The portraits were left untouched, their haunted faces staring into the void. I couldn't shake off the chilling sensation that they were more than mere paintings. but windows into a world of dread and despair. The family portraits remain a chilling testament to a legacy of horror that I hope to never encounter again.
Hit the subscribe button if you don't want me to come at night.